fucking sleeping possums in it and shit, and and we're all kind of hurting from it, man. It's like we believed in you.
We totally believed in it, man. I remember when they did that. Anyway, I'm Pat.
I'm Jeffrey.
We're bitching about City Skylines too.
The fucking heartbreak of goddamn City Skylines 2.
Yeah. No, man. I paid the expensive package, like $110 one, where you get all the free shit. And I was like, oh, this is gonna totally be worth it because I bought so much DLC for the previous one.
You know what? And they were good about the DLC in the last one in terms of like they didn't nickel and dime you. In fact, they made good bundles to make sure that you like they gave so many quality of life things out for free.
Right.
And then the DLCs, they put them together in these bundles that were really reasonably priced.
Oh, they were great.
Yeah.
If you threw them in your wish list for a little while, you never had to wait more than a couple of weeks before you got an offer. And so it was like nice. So, I bought them in chunks where I basically spent another $70 on a block of DLC. And so, and get like 4 or 5 of them at once.
Yeah.
So, but then the new one came out, man. I mean, the visuals, like, I remember watching the first trailer for it. I was like, fuck, yes.
Yeah.
So this looks great, and then you get into it, and it's like, it probably took me a little bit longer than it should have to realize how much the game sucks. So, because I was like, well, I just got to get to the fun part. So,
I assume there was something wrong with me.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, we bitched about it on the podcast. I was like, I can't get fucking, it's making me do apartment complex. I don't want urban living. So I don't want rent-assisted housing. So stop making me try and build it. Not realizing that, I'm sorry, there's only one way you can build a city in Scandinavia. So it involves this. So, and you better turn on that 420 bullshit too. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Why don't you make the city? I'll just watch you do it. Yeah.
It was made with all of the eliteness of someone that believes that their city is superior to the rest of the country because they live close to a body of water. And
it's pretty accurate,
Jesus Christ, man. And it's just a little bit absurd. Well, and on top of that too, like with the problems that it had with the economy at the beginning. I don't know where it is now. I've not been given a notification. They never sent out the official "I'm sorry" DLC. That's basically hey, we fixed this, reinstalled.
No, they went on fucking sabbatical for all summer.
Yeah.
So, and I remember that. It's like, well, we got to get this 2.0 version out before we go on sabbatical, and they barfed it out, and I tried it again, and it was still busted.
Yeah.
So, and it's not just the economy, man. I mean, we were talking about the performance issues on it, man. It made my machine fucking chug. And so, even, and I mean, you turn the graphics down, so it's basically like a fucking low poly count, phone game. And it doesn't look charming either that way.
It's just like, it's 2022 or whatever it came out. I'm like, I should be playing games in standard definition.
Standard definition, yeah, exactly.
Like, high would be good. One of those intermediates in between here and the 4K would be fine. But yeah, that was absolutely right. And I remember that I found a solution to the economy, which was so stupid that...
you broke it.
Yeah. Remember how I did that?
No, I don't, but...
Okay, so... What happened was... a feature that they put into it here that seemed rather ingenious, where... And there was something to this in the last one too, but not quite. It was a little bit different. Was basically when you build a road or a railroad or something like that off the edge of your city walls, it would create a connection to another city. Right. And depending on where your placement was, it would say, like, if you went in this area, it would say to Concord, to whatever. Right. But it didn't stop the people. I guess they thought that people would be like, I guess one connection to Concord is enough, right? So if you exactly, so if
Got
you
it.
take your city grid, right, and just basically extend it all the way across the map on all sides,
Yeah.
right, you essentially have created shipping lanes 4 deep to every city
Right.
in the country,
Yeah.
right? And so the whole purpose of this for me was like, it was an experiment to see like, can I solve some traffic problems by having 2 ways to come in and out of the city?
Right,
Honestly.
because otherwise your artery get clogged real fast.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it turns out that if you have 140 ways to get into the city, and it doesn't matter if, when they're coming in, it's like, oh, okay, well, now you're driving by the houses. Basically, it just it creates so many shipping lanes that are treated independently that the money just rolls in crazy amounts.
Yeah, so it's not like Skylines 1, where there's a connection to each side and you have to connect to
Correct.
it. You can run a road off the map and it will connect to it.
Yep.
That's right. I do remember that.
Same thing goes with railroad. Same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
You can have one and then it branches off 100 times.
Well, and that was the that was again trying to do like some kind of cool like design with the railroads, and then like they branch off into other places. So
Yeah.
as the whole idea was, you take the train through the city, but it also branches off into other places.
Right.
Those other places would come in. You could take these and go to work, blah, 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 because they're just kind of like, trains are the only solution, guys.
Oh yeah, no, in that game you better have ferries if you have fucking water near you.
I had ferries. The ferries were kind of cool.
The ferries were kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, once that happened, I remember you saying like, I can't make any money in this game. It's like, let me show you the ugliest city on the planet. I'll show you how much money it makes. Like no one would live here.
Nobody would live
I
here,
think that was our point, was no one would live here.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the most unpleasant place. I mean, in Skylines 1, you'd actually build towns, because you and I got that whole kick. We were like, okay, so this is the Catholic part of town, and, all these guys work at that steel mill, and they're going to beat up the kids in the neighborhood over here with all the yuppies.
Yeah.
So, you really got into it. So... but Skylines 1 had its problems too. I mean, when they came out with the Industries DLC, that completely broke their economy when you went socialist mode. They were like, no, I'm going to own the box factory.
I never did that. I never bought that one.
It broke it, man. But then Skylines 2, yeah, I kept trying to build these small little bedroom community towns. With a lot of like, no, we have green neighborhoods and everybody has a 1 acre lot, kind of thing. And the game's like, what the fuck kind of monster are you? So, yeah. It's like, we're going to punish you. Why are you going to do that? All your people are rich now. It's like, no. So, have you been to parts of Nebraska? Obviously not. So, but it was still one of those things. Where it was like, okay, you're not going to let me build the kind of city that I want to build, so we tried building your city. Then after a little while, it was like, this thing looks Soviet. I mean,
I did.
I had to have all these apartment complexes in it, man. So it was like this town has like 8,000 people in it, and almost 90% of them live in multi-story high-rises. So
I think over there at the Colossal Order headquarters, I think there's a lot of people there that use the phrase late stage capitalism unironically.
Unironically, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's on their email tagline, late stage capitalist.
Well, because remember, they're the ones on the cusp of
right,
the
post-industrial
revolution.
futurist here.
Yes. I don't know, man. It's to be fair, like it's not as though it could be so overt. There could be things that they do in there that were so overt to basically impose certain aspects of their ideology. So what we extrapolate from this in a lot of the soft touches of gameplay, so to speak, are, I would say, gracious in comparison to the heavy hand that they could use.
From Colossal Order?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like there could be things where they actively like so. Let's go back in time for a second. All right, so let's go back to Civilization 2 because this is the one I remember this happening in.
With all the nukes.
With all the nukes
Yeah.
and with the with the pollution and the global warming things that would come into play, where
I think global warming was actually in the first game, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I
But it
remember.
would turn like your plains into swamps or into deserts.
Yeah, here's the thing: I
think.
remember that. I just because Civilization 2 did everything the first one did, but better. Uh, I have more memories of that one now than the first one. Not to say that there was anything wrong with the first one. It just completely replaced. There was no reason for me to ever go back to it, right? But I think you're right because I
I think I
remember,
put more hours in the first one though. So
oddly enough, in some ways, yes.
yeah,
but,
I think I
but,
did. 'Cause we had CivNet too. So
Oh, that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
But I think you're right because there was this little like heat graph on the first one, and it
It
would
was like a sun, wasn't it?
yeah
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and
It would turn like white hot. you know. Yeah.
yeah, and I remember the little death's head pollution things that would come out, and
That was Civ 2.
yeah,
Yeah, that was Civ 2.
and you'd be cleaning that shit up, and so there
Yeah.
was a little bit of hey, like we do need to take into consideration the industrial age, etc., etc.
Well, they give you a lot of ways to do that, though. You'd build, what was it, recycling centers, and you could switch to like
You would change your
power,
factories
yeah,
to different things and stuff
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. There was like a couple wonders that let you helped you with that. So, yeah, no, I do remember that. But then there was ways to mitigate it. But if you wanted to just let it run, the game was like whatever. So you know,
Well, I mean, it could really fuck things up. But that being said, it's just I think that was more of a gameplay balancing thing. It didn't feel like super heavy-handed to come in there like that. But there are elements that they could do. But that being said, in cities, yes, I'm aware that there are certain things that they're pushing you to, but they don't necessarily just tell you. They don't just say they don't penalize you so badly to the point where it becomes untenable.
no, and I think you can see that in Skylines 1 a little bit, and they violated the Jeffalonian first rule of game design was don't listen to the fans.
Well,
And they started violating that with all their DLC.
oh
You
right,
could see it
right.
in like, well, I want policies that let me do this. I want assets that are, like eco-friendly assets, so I can have a completely
Right,
green city. You never did see a single fucking church in that entire game.
Wow.
Yeah, you never did. So, whereas like SimCity 4, that was actually kind of critical to
Wow.
most of the things in SimCity, because you remember the very first one, if you plopped down a residential, it had a small chance of getting turned into a church or a hospital. So, and
Yeah. Oh,
both
that's
of
right.
those
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
helped you. So you didn't want to fuck with them. So, and then the same thing was true in SimCity 4. I think that one you actually zoned those areas, though, if I'm not mistaken. You had to plop hospitals. And I think, but churches,
by that one, yeah.
churches were like rewards that you got. So, because you get reward buildings in the game.
Right.
And they were really important because, like, you could put one of those in a poor neighborhood. All right. And, people wouldn't bitch as much,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, but there was none of that. And so you could just tell, and I never spent any time on like the Steam forums for Skylines, but I watched a few guys on YouTube over the years who, oh, I'm a city planner and I play this game. Okay, great. Are you actually one, or you just,
There was one.
there's one guy out there who actually is. He's really good. He gave up on Skylines 2 pretty quick. And so he was like, so I'm not going to talk smack about it, but I'm not going to play it until it gets better. So, but anyway, yeah, then there's some other guys who, I followed them for a little bit too. Um, and, what was it? There was like they would ask for features, and then sure enough, like within a couple like iterations, you would see it in a DLC or something along those lines. So
was actually okay. So I'm curious about that. So the modding community with Skylines was
humongous.
huge. And so was that part of the conversation that they had with the devs, where basically good mods would eventually become DLC or
kind of, but not like.
I thought a lot of the quality of life ones, like the road arrows, and I think some of the a lot of the traffic stuff was modded first.
Right,
and
where
then
you could
became-
right click and it would flip the road direction and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, stuff like that.
I think a lot.
But
of
then
that,
there were other things in there that they never implemented, like their Move It tool, which was like the most popular mod, which allows you to take any asset and move it, So you could actually get your highways to fucking work. So
right.
And for some reason, Colossal Order was just obstinately stubborn about. I mean, who knows? There might have been something about the way the game was packaged and shipped that they were like, no, we can't do that. I have no idea. So
that, or there could have been something that within the code would lead to certain problems, certain things that they didn't want under their.
To be fair, I mean that Skylines 1 would run on basically a potato of a computer.
Oh god, yeah.
To a point.
Well, it was scalable enough to that point. If you scale it up, it was stunning, and you could scale it down basically enough to run on a freaking iPad. So
yep. Yeah.
Again, it wouldn't look amazing, but I mean, the fact is, you're looking at it on a pretty small screen. I mean, yeah, it wasn't that. It was as resource heavy as you wanted it to be.
It was.
Let me put it that way.
Yeah, you could dumb it down pretty far.
And let me say this too: on everyone's computer, once you started getting to 100,000 citizens, it started to slow down.
Oh yeah,
there was no way around it. There was just too much stuff that was
too many calculations going on in real time. Yeah,
which is what I thought what they learned from the first game, and we're going to, fix in the second, but it actually just got 10 times worse. So
yeah, it did.
It's still a sore spot with me. This should be
a much better game.
A crowning achievement, and I feel that yes, I'm owed an apology. I'm owed an update. At no charge.
Cost. Yeah.
At no charge, with a bunch of cool shit, with a certain amount of. Look, I understand that as part of the game, that I think it starts at 1900. What does the year start at?
So the new one starts the day that you are firing it up.
Okay.
Which is weird, man, because it's like, there was nothing here before 2025. We found pristine land after we took it from the natives. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So
no, but the old one started in 1900.
In 1900. Okay, so to have a situation like that where the only way to put in things like churches was to go into the assets or to mods and stuff like that is kind of strange. And this was something that this was pointed out about the fucking Dragon Age Veilguard game, where I presume you've seen some.
I've seen the things, Jeff. I've seen
the
vitriol and the half-hearted defenses of it.
All right,
because it seems like even Dragon Age fanboys aren't really a fan of that game.
Yeah, well. All right,
so I kind of feel for it, man, because it's kind of like, you got Colossal Order.
Only you picked it up and ran with it, and so this was something that they said about this was, with the very irritating subsection of trans friendliness within the game, right? This is something that was pointed out to me, and is absolutely true. Is in a game like this, where you introduce those elements, you have to have a way for your character to reject it.
To opt out of it, yes.
Well, to not necessarily opt out of it, but to disagree. But to basically, like, if you're going to put these into here, now, you can subtly have ways to say that this will impact things negatively, or whatever, right?
Some games do that better than others, so...
But if you're going to put these kind of elements in there, you have to allow your character to say, we don't believe that here. And
I don't know if you have to do that, but I mean, you can't have it like, well, I agree with you as option A. It's like, well, I completely agree with
that's
you as
exactly
option B.
correct.
It's like
Yes.
option C, I agree with you so much that I'm going to send you guys money. It's like, okay,
Correct.
so yeah, you got to have one that's like, oh, this isn't really my thing. So
I
in a very Starfield-esque, like non-confrontational way.
I would argue that you have to be able to go further. But yes,
yeah.
I totally understand. But that's that sort of thing. If you're going to put a hot button issue in there, you have to be able to allow people to represent themselves both ways on this. Otherwise, it's preachy.
Well, a lot of games are preachy now, man. I mean, you know, like,
Well, yeah. I mean, look at how many studios have fucking like they're shutting their doors
I know,
as a
yeah,
result of this.
yeah. So I mean, again, that goes back to this other podcast that I've been listening to from this game developer, you know, who's been around since the '90s.
What'd you say?
Well, he said the same thing. He was like, "Look, I mean, you know, like if it's a story, it's a story. That's not an RPG. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and so, like, you know, if you're gonna do that, write a fucking book. So,
Exactly.
you know, because if you're not gonna let me have any agency in terms of my dialogue choices, or hey, I want to be the guy who doesn't talk to anybody and just kills everybody that I see, and see if I could beat the game that way. You should
Right.
let me do that. You know, and so he was one of the Fallout devs from the original ones. So he's an interesting guy. He's gay, so you know.
Right.
But he's also like, no, we don't have a 9-person party and 8 of them are gay.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Here's the thing: is it's okay for people to not like each other as a result too. I mean, because that's part of the realism of the situation. You can't have everybody basically like celebrate this shit.
Well, no, he takes a different tack on that.
Huh?
He's like, it doesn't have anything to do with realism. It's not fun. So
I agree.
And he's like, fun is king in all games. So it's like, if you're trying to create a realistic thing, you know, go make Microsoft Flight Simulator. Don't be making Dragon Age. You
Right.
know? So yeah.
Right.
So, but at the same point in time, he's like, yeah. I mean, the thing is that like, if you're writing a character for 3% of your audience, and you're going to force the other 97% to actually, you know, glom onto that 3%, then that's not fun for them. You know?
Well, it's not fun, and it's not. Here's the thing: is the 3% are not going to buy 9 copies apiece to offset.
Right.
They're not.
No,
They're
you're
just
right.
not.
You're not. So
This is the classic conundrum where it comes into what matters more, Patrick: the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes or the audience
score, yes.
Why?
So,
Because it's the audience that spends the money. Now, I'm not
they're the
saying
ones with the cashola.
I am certainly not saying that the audience is right on a lot of these things, but what I will say is that within the critics that they've allowed into their systems, okay, there's a lot of people that basically will kick the ball onto the green if it represents certain ideological values, regardless of the merit of the actual project. And
Yeah, I can't even believe people actually listen to games critics anymore. I mean, I know I certainly do.
it's the last. I mean, who was it? It was not IGN. It was I think Kotaku was down to their
Yeah, like 3 fucking people.
They got
I think I
the
saw
last
that. Yeah,
3
yeah.
reviewers, and these are well, actually, I'm calling them reviewers. I believe the last of these people are essentially making game guides, which is
Okay.
what you should have been doing in the first place.
Yeah. The problem with like anything like that, though, I mean, in terms of journalism, man, I mean, YouTube's going to beat you to the door like within 10 seconds. So, you know, I mean, that's the thing, man. I mean, it's just like there's no room for game. If I want to see a review on something, I gotta go to YouTube. So, or I'll go to Steam, or I'll go to Twitch. I have been on Twitch in a long time. So
Twitch is pretty pointless.
yeah.
I don't want to. Well, actually, I can shit on the platform all I want. I have no problem with that. It's. I think the concept of it is absolutely fantastic, but the utter wishy-washiness of believing in what you should be presenting has created a monster that they cannot control.
Believing what you should be presenting. Like, what do you mean by that?
Twitch was not conceived in any way as the entity that it is now.
Okay.
And
clarity, please. What do you mean by that?
well, it was not designed as a medium for cam girls to basically prey on 12-year-olds to lure them into stealing their parents'
They
credit
would totally get me if I was still 12, man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is but that's what I'm telling you. It was in no way conceived as this. And in a failure to police or set rules and say, look, we know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, okay? Of course, yeah.
The attempts that you're making here to circumvent the point, causing us to change and update the rules every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To allow these top performers, because that's the thing, is that was allowing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they had like 5 to 10 performers who were making just mint, you know, for them and Twitch. So, because Twitch still got, what, a 30% cut on everything. I can't remember what their breakdown was.
I don't remember it. I think their payout schedule was kind of shitty, but
I don't remember it, but I knew that they paid a little bit better than YouTube for a while, then they didn't.
And then they didn't.
Yeah.
So they've been having a bouncing back and forth with that kind of stuff. But that's the thing is if you had a vision for what you wanted to do and you saw that this is not it, then it's sort of...
This is not Rome.
Thank you.
This is not it.
I like his response to it's like, it's not my... I'm like, you still got to go to work.
You still got to go to work. Yeah. You got a job to do.
It's like we can.
What do you want? You want a bonus? You know,
we talk about this later.
You're on at 5, bro. Yeah.
But that was the thing is Twitch was full of fucking like ideological assholes who were so caught up with certain things where like nobody had the business sense to jump in and say like, hey guys, like, look, if you want to turn this into like a low rent prostitution catalog, I'm fine with it, right? Let them do what they do. As a matter of fact, the best thing you can do, kick the fucking gamers off the platform.
We'll kind of did
10 times more money,
10 times more money, yeah.
And we can throw out 90% of our rule book, right?
Right.
And so then they got into this situation where they're, all right, so half of it is people blowing into make-believe ears with no clothes on, and then you have a cadre.
ASMR, right.
Yeah, then you have...
Is it still a thing?
It's a huge thing.
Is it still a thing? Wow.
And then you have a huge cadre of pro-Palestinian jerk-offs who sit there and basically, in not-so-coded language...
Yeah.
Talk about the death of America and wanting every Jew dead on this planet
so
with no blowback.
Yeah, that happened after after I stopped watching it. So it's probably been about 2 years since I was kind of involved in, like, you know, I was getting more active on Twitch than I was on YouTube.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
And then yeah, that happened. It was all the cam girls, and then it was there's a lot of political garbage that started to come up about 3 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, during COVID. So then I was just like, you know what, I'm kind of good on this. So, and it would just, I mean, and the problem with Twitch is Twitch had like this sticky feed, you know, where if you clicked on one thing, oh my God, did it give you a lot of that? So, you know.
Well, the presumption is that because you clicked on it, that you like it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was and of course there was a lot of like there was a lot of favoritism, and a lot of times when they would basically pick the featured performers that would show up on that first like slot there.
Oh yeah.
The thumb would be way on the scale.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean that's the thing is you can't go into Twitch and find your Glenn Beck. I mean that's the thing is when there's no counterbalance to the kind of thing, all you have is different layers of degeneracy. And how you choose to take it, whether it's in terms of your Israeli hate or fucking people dressing up in deer suits eating grass, like that's You think I'm lying?
I know you're not lying. I've
Yeah,
seen some of these
that's
things,
there was a person on the Twitch safety panel. You know, and that's because you're in the same people is like, oh no, sex work is empowering. I'm like, dude, sell that to somebody else because you
Well, I mean, and they did. I mean,
like don't.
Twitch basically single-handedly created OnlyFans, so you know,
Oh,
so
well, I mean, you could say that this is all right. You could say it's an evolution of things that they were doing in basically like Ukraine and Russia and stuff like that.
Sure.
You know, before, but they didn't create it, but they sure basically put it on the map by giving people the opportunity to just push right to it to say like
yeah, exactly.
this is my legit platform. You want to see the other stuff, go over here and pay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, if you did this and this was your vision of what you thought the platform would be, like this is the kind of thing when they joke about depending on your founding father, if you said like, what would Benjamin Franklin say if he woke up today? Benjamin Franklin would say like, I don't know. Like you guys that was kind of like I didn't conceive it exactly like this, but
I don't think he'd have a problem with all
he's just like, but y'all picked up the ball and ran with a lot of things that I said I couldn't conceive it, but I'm not saying it's wrong. But there are different like William Penn would be like, burn it down.
And burn you down.
Yeah. Just saying, like, pick your founding fathers. Some guys are going to be, on board with this.
Right.
And so the same thing goes with like Twitch. What would your founders say to the creation of this? Was this their vision? Was this?
Twitch it kind of exists in its own like sphere now. I mean, there's this like weird collection of there are a bunch of game devs still on there. There are pretty broad political perspectives on there now, so you can find some pretty whack shit from both sides.
You can. And I'm not.
It's not as bad as the libertarian wasteland that is Rumble. So, but yeah.
What is? I mean,
there is nothing that really compares to that. I mean, you wander around in that, you need a shower when you come back out. So yeah,
it's amazing. Well, because I mean, that's the thing is Twitter used to be the leftist circle jerk, and now Blue Sky has become that is where.
But they're all the people who matter are still on Twitter, man. It's hilarious.
I know.
I even saw a guy get bitching about it yesterday. He's like, the one thing that I hate about this is I hate having to post to multiple platforms, so I'm just going to post on this one now.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is this is what a lot of people are finding out right at this point. They're running into one of two things. It's they're not getting any dopamine hits because everybody's fucking agreeing with them, right?
Right.
Because basically when you go into a hug box, that's what you get.
A hug box, I like that.
Not my term, but I mean that's
a good one.
That is what it is. Well,
it's like the opposite of a suicide booth. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other component of this is that you find that you're constantly disagreeing with people that are actually on your side, which means that you never wanted unity with these folks. You just like fucking arguing, right? And given the fact that dudes on there are like hunting down pedophile after pedophile, this is the place
where
on Blue Sky is it is disgusting how many that is the new home of the child predator, dude. It is disgusting.
Well, they came off Discord because there's a new platform, huh? Yeah.
So there was a little bit of like, oh, we can come out in the open. There's no moderation here.
Well, yeah. Gonna scare the girls away.
You are correct. There never were any in the first fucking place. The only girls on that platform used to be guys. That's all I can tell you. Yes, that is.
I haven't even looked at it, man. There's no reason for me to do that.
No. Well, and it's funny because when you say Rumble, that's roughly comparable, man. It is Rumble is
I've had to venture into it a couple times to check a few things out, And the suggestions that you get on that are yeah, they're a little bit like, ooh, ugh.
It's a little bit too
Yeah,
circle jerky in here.
yeah,
Yes.
very much
Yes.
so, yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely where, all the crypto lords live, and the
Yes.
yeah, the fringe on the flag people. So, yeah. So
What is I'm trying to remember um the common three things that I always hear on those stops are I know my rights.
oh yeah,
Um,
you don't have jurisdiction here.
right. I need to speak to your supervisor like it's a fucking target. Um, uh, am I being detained or am I free to go?
Right, yeah.
Uh, um, I'm not driving. I'm traveling. What am I missing? I feel like there's another big
I
one
don't
that
know.
I'm
I
missing,
haven't I
but
haven't
that's
gone down that rabbit hole in a little while, man. I did see. Well, I was doom scrolling on Twitter the other day, and I got sucked into this entire of cops actually getting into gun battles during stops. So
What was the problem? Did you feel like it wasn't bothering you enough?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like this is terrible. But that guy, I mean, you can obviously tell he's up to no good, and then he gets plugged. So and it's like, all right.
There's a part of you that still wants to say, "Well, that's tragic," but why am I saying like good? And if you're
Not
saying
really doing that, man. But
no, but if you can feel a part of your brain saying good, that's when you need to step back a little bit.
well, I'm
You've
like, I'm
lost
glad the
your-
cop didn't get hurt. So yeah,
Right.
he was like, wow, he really got the drop on that dude. So, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, when you start, when you realize that your center for because I understand that your normal dip into this is warfare stuff, and I think you know when
That's
it's time
Telegram. That's not on Twitter.
Well, no, but I think you know when it's time to. I gotta get away from this. For a little
yeah.
bit.
Eventually, you do get a little nauseous.
Yeah.
So
Like if I don't stop now and actually go in for, I'm gonna get weird.
I've seen some stuff the last. I don't know. It's been a week since we've done that. Man, a lot of shit has happened that last week too. So that whole cop thing was
yeah.
prompted by that thing on the New York subway.
Oh my god,
Dude,
which thing? I presume you're talking about the fire.
fire, yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, come on, man. I don't know what's going on with this cop here. I mean, it looks really bad. So, but I can't watch that, man. That's one of those ones that you watch just a little bit of, you start getting a little sick to your stomach. It's like, oh, can't do it.
It's rough.
Yeah, it's rough. So
it's extreme. Well, and on top of that too, just this is within like 2 weeks of Penny being found not guilty. So the fact that
oh yeah.
I would understand if they managed to convict that guy, I would understand a little bit more the bystander effect. But on this, if you saw that shit happening on your subway, it's like no, I have to intervene. I think.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was hard to get like straight stories on it pretty quick. So
I got
because
you there,
even
yeah.
like Andy No had to back off on some of the stuff that he said right off the bat. So I was like, all right, well, let's just wait and see. And then it kind of disappeared. So I mean, it was still out there, but there were other things that were going on.
Right.
That were just kind of like, okay, I guess we're going to talk about that now instead of this. Okay, cool. So, but yeah, that got me started on the cop shooting videos. So, which eventually goes to war porn, and I have to stop watching that after a little bit.
You know your limits.
I do know my limits, man, and there's definitely some things that have come out in the Ukraine war the last 2 weeks and just gut wrenching.
Gut wrenching. A lot of North Koreans getting blowed up.
There's a lot of video out there on
They're
that, Jeff.
not doing well. I'm hearing stories of would rather commit suicide than surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Because I presume that means eventually, one way or another, you have to go home.
They're not going to be able to go home.
Yeah. So
it's basically a one-way ticket to Ukraine. So,
yeah.
I mean, so there is some video out there of them surrendering. So Ukrainians have done a little bit of effort to get like native North Korean speakers to, like, hey, it's not that bad over here. Come on over, grab yourself a meal.
Right.
But of course, everybody's afraid of like what retribution is going to happen to their family and stuff like that. So even on Telegram, they blur out the faces and shit. And so, but there are some videos of that out there. So man, I mean, the stuff that comes from Russia is the most heartbreaking though, dude. So there's like videos, and they're not hard to find, of like 15-year-old kids in fucking train stations saying goodbye to their mothers. And it's like, what the fuck?
I didn't see that.
There are several of those, man. So you can find those things out there, and they're being encouraged by their local, officials and stuff like that. And oh yeah, all these kids are, of age and volunteered. And you look at them, and you're like, no, they didn't. There's no fucking way.
If
it's like, that guy is not 18. There's no fucking way that guy is 18.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just it's rough. So there was this old montage of this one kid who, he actually was 18, and he was, Russian patriot, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. And he's got his own Telegram channel, and he all these videos about like, well, yeah, I'm gonna go do my duty like my fathers and my grandfathers before me, and blah blah blah. He's dead in 2 weeks. So I know.
That's how it goes, man. That's the that's the story of it. What's
the
weird,
drone footage, oh my god, man, it is terrifying.
well, I mean, if you want to talk about like the utter dehumanization of conflict, yeah, this is sort of the problem. This is sort of exactly.
Well, I don't know how much it dehumanizes it, man. It's just because someone's still flying that drone. So
Someone's still flying it, but I mean, it's
actually really rough on people who do that.
take it. I mean, yes,
really
I understand that,
yeah.
but put that in the position of, all right, let's pretend we had these in World War II. I think people would gladly be killing dudes with these rather than be storming the beaches.
Well, yeah, but I mean, storming the beaches is something that you can't do with drones. So you gotta kind of do it with boots. So
I would like to think that the wave of drones,
it's not one of those
like hits harder and gives you less people to get chewed up.
Yeah, but eventually you still need boots on the ground.
It's eventually going to happen. There's no holding territory with.
Yeah, you can only do it with
without
guys.
personnel. Yep.
You can't use a drone to hold territory.
Yep.
Like they definitely see. Like, there's a military guy that I follow, and he is convinced that drone warfare is going to begin and end in the Ukraine war. So he's like, it's just, there's not a future for it. So, because what we're doing is we're figuring out all the limitations of drones and things like that. So, very quickly. And some of those things are absolutely positively apparent. You can't hold territory with it. You can't use it to subjugate a population. So,
not in its current form.
Not in its current form. Is like, and then, people have been, throwing rocks at him. Say, well, what about when, autonomous AI? He's like, actually, autonomous AI is probably going to be a little bit more forgiving than people are. Because remember, if you program it where it only does this, and if someone puts their hands up like this, it doesn't kill them. Okay, there's not a human decision involved in that.
Agreed.
It's not going to kill them. All right, where there are thousands of videos coming out of from that where it's just like, I give up, and they're like, we don't care.
Well, that's a shame. That's a mistake.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw this heartbreaking one last week of this Russian squad leading these 5 Ukrainian guys into a ditch, making them strip, and then just fucking Hitler machine gunning them.
This is what I'm talking about.
It's awful, dude.
Like this is, again, this is one of those moments that. All right. I throw this.
That's grouping, man. It's terrible.
It's just another one of the events that I said we only have like 3 days of this left. But basically, this year, so many times I said, this is 2024.
I know, man.
And I remember.
Why are we beheading people?
Jeez. The problem with the beheading is like, that'll be going on in 2025 and 26. And certainly, I remember, so I was on a conference call with somebody from Belarus.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you remember this, but they had like super shenanigans going on with elections, right?
Oh, this year?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that.
All right, so
Did they get who's that Poroshenko guy or whatever?
I don't remember his name, and I have a 0% chance of pronouncing it correctly. But
Yeah.
so I was talking about this, and it was unreal to me in this year over a Zoom call, right? That the person I was speaking with was basically like giving me eyes and then waving me off, like we don't talk about this.
Oh, okay.
Like
yeah.
we can't talk about.
Don't do that on
like,
this call. Yeah.
and to me, I'm from the perspective of talk about what, like what is, and it's just in certain cultures still.
Yeah.
You do not talk about
Right.
leadership problems and problems within the government.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
So that's the one thing that I would say over the last year that I learned the most about that conflict in Russia in particular is, it's like, well, it's the government's problem. It's not my problem until it actually comes to your fucking village,
Right.
or,
Right.
like
Yeah.
your neighbor and your kids don't come back, kind of thing. So, but it's just it's like, oh, I don't want to talk politics. It's not my business, So, I gotta get up tomorrow and go to work,
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
I just realized it was like, wow, fucking life is gonna suck for you guys, over the next couple of years, and it's just it's one of those things where it's like, dude, fucking, it's your government, do something about it. And I mean, that's like a real American way to look at things.
Super duper American.
It is, and like
Yeah.
this year, I mean, we get to do it every 4 years. It's almost like
We're
it's baked in the cake, man.
to the point where we see elections as sort of an inconvenience instead of.
Well, sometimes you look forward to them because it's time, So, but
Totally
yeah.
understand, but when you look, you say, well, actually, we actually have these. It's every 2 years.
Yeah, we have midterms. Right? Yeah.
So, and these all have consequence, and you're talking about like, depending on where you live, and you see this sort of activity, and again, it's like in a land of plenty. It's like you guys have elections. How often and how much they matter? It's like everything. It's and it's so. The shit is so out in the open that a lot of people don't vote because
Sure.
they're the powers of the people that are being elected in are limited,
Yeah.
right? So unlike other places, and this I still struggle with from European place to European place, it is still the whole thing of when are you going to hold elections? Whenever we need to. Whenever
That's
it's been
weird, man.
determined,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Well, I mean, they do have limits on them where it's like
Yeah.
we got to have it at least every 6 years or something like that.
Yes.
And then, but if we get really upset and everybody doesn't show up to work on one weekend, then yeah, I mean, we'll have them on Monday. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, what? So, and then like I've heard a lot of criticism, especially from like I have students, international students. They're like, why does this take 2 years? I mean, the whole electoral process is like, in England we can do them in 6 weeks. I don't buy into that anymore, man. Actually having the long campaign is actually really important. I think Harris demonstrated that very well this year.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
and so like, it's like, I mean, I don't entertain the criticism of our system that I used to maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. So just because it's like, actually it works pretty fucking good. So, it really, like Donald Trump has proved 3 elections in a row now that the money really isn't the thing. So, which for decades, everybody,
It was a given.
It was a given.
Yeah.
It was a given that it was corrupt and that it was the
foregone
money.
conclusion.
And now you realize it's like, actually, no. I mean, it's actually with voters, man.
Well, where it was the whole idea was that advertising and exposure was victory, and
Right.
much like the Protestant Reformation, at this point, we have taken that out of the hands of. And I'll say this:
Yeah, that's true.
legacy media does not approve of the change. They don't like it. They don't like the lack of influence that they currently have. They are not handling it like champs.
They're not going to get it back either.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to
And
happen.
The people that have seen the writing on the wall, that have smiles on their faces, good for them. But there's a lot of people who are fucking pissed that they do not have the influence that they had
And
at one point.
Yeah, they won't have it back, man.
Nope.
No, and I mean, 'cause
Nope.
I can just tell you that right off the bat. I mean, if I go, and ask anybody who's more than 5 years younger than I am, where do you get your news from? None of them are reading the New York Times. None of them are watching CNN. The only person that I know who still watches Fox News is my mother. So,
Right.
and that one's different. I mean, if it's not like she's watching CNN. I don't even know anybody who watches CNN anymore. So yeah, no, me neither. And like any kind of form of legacy media has just basically been kind of pushed out the door. It's gonna wither on the vine. It might come back in some form, but it won't be the same. So it certainly is never going to wield the same influence that it did during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where you had, basically 3 stations and 10 newspapers that, controlled everything. So, that it just, the internet doesn't work like that, man. I mean, yeah, the internet's 80% porn,
Yeah.
but still that remaining 20%, yeah. And there's other elements that people don't read anymore, so which I don't really have a problem with. So, you take the information in how you want. That's fine. I don't need to read a 10,000 word article. So in order to get, what I can get from a 144 word tweet. So, and a couple appropriate links now. So, so even though you probably spend more time consuming news, you consume, the volume of news that you consume is way bigger than anything that the New York Times can actually control. So it's just too big. So it's a small man trying to ride a big elephant. It's just not gonna work. So
Well, especially, I mean, think about your position at the New York Times. Understand what it is at this point, where
it's a newspaper for the Upper West Side. So that's what it is.
well, bro, I'm going to take it a step further. So, yes, you're talking about the people that actually read it.
Right? Yeah.
Imagine that you are still one of those. Let's imagine that you are one of those grumpy 70-year-old holdouts that refuses to retire. It's just that's who you are. Just fucking print media for life.
Sure. Yeah.
Coming to the realization that within this, you are no longer nobody reads your article. They will only link to it as a resource, as a reference. That's all they care about at this point is where is this from and what did you say?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to link it in an argument. That is it. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to ingest it. All those hours you put in doesn't matter. All I'm going to do is link this so somebody else will not read it.
AI is totally destroying this already, man. I mean, I use ChatGPT to collate news now. It's great at
do it.
It's fucking great at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, do I trust it 100%? No.
Hey, dude, it even gives that disclaimer at the top.
It
man.
does.
There's
Yeah,
a reason
it
for
does.
that.
It does. Hey, actually, that being said, I did actually watch the China guys this week. So,
Funny, I did too.
did you watch that whole thing where they were messing around with ByteDance's AI?
Yeah.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that was so funny, dude. So it was like, oh yeah, the Chinese are still up to shenanigans, guys.
That's who they are.
That
man.
one was
They
funny,
are,
man.
yeah.
It just kind of, I mean, I found it cute. So
It is cute. It's I don't know if you saw. I mean, this was the same thing there. They were showcasing China. They were showcasing and flying around their
sixth generation,
sixth generation.
which is an SU-53 that's got a box over it.
Bro, it's just
That's what it is. And so somebody said that on Twitter. So he was just like, yeah, that's what it comes like. He just didn't take it out of the box. Anyway, I don't know where you're going with that, man, but that was really
that's
good.
pretty much all there is to it. It's you can paint it any way that you like, but it's ever since you and I understood the hood was taken off, the sheet was taken off of what the Chinese monster is presented to be, and you look at these things and you see there's just everything is so discount rack with these guys.
Totally.
It's so like I'm not even convinced you guys understand the tech that you're ripping off. You know, I have absolutely no fears of this country as a technological leader because I'm not.
Well, I mean, their nuclear weapons work. Their nukes
They
work.
do,
Yeah,
yes.
they've got a lot of them. So
Agreed.
yeah.
Right.
So I mean, they
There's
should be taken seriously.
there's three groups that have those, right? It's not they're not in a position where theirs work and ours don't.
No, ours work fine.
Right.
So in fact, we're going to build new ones. So,
Correct. Correct.
So-
Which is going to be a
and we're going to put MIRVs on them for a change. It's unlike the other signatories of those treaties. We actually did what we were told to do.
I know.
Shame on
That's
us, man.
Oh, you rascals.
You rascals. You fooled me once. You ain't going to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah.
Season. Right.
Yeah, so there's that. But in terms of this is, you were talking about the future of like drone warfare. I think that there's something to this where even that sixth generation, of air fighters and stuff like this is pointless. This is something that I can look at this and say, like, you know what a practical use for a drone is going to be? Taking that out.
Possibly.
Basically, as something that is sort of an unmanned fighter killer is something that.
Well, I mean, so the U.S. Air Force is going a different direction. They're kind of going where the Navy went. Because, like, an aircraft carrier doesn't actually have any fighters on it. So the F-18 Super Hornet is not an air superiority fighter. It's bomber.
No.
It's a bomber.
Yeah.
Okay, the F-35 is also designed as a bomber. So
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use it.
and it's fine at it. It's not as
good,
It's
but-
not. It's very good. It's not as good as the F-22, but we don't sell those. So in fact, we don't even make them anymore because there's no reason to have them.
No, the expectation is that they're going to be the dominant fighter for the next 70 years.
Exactly. And so they've already, so the F-22, they have that helmet that basically you can use to fly the plane. They've also figured out that you can use this to fly like multiple drones at the same time that basically escort the command plane. So, I mean, they've got this kind of figured out. So China ordered 1 million FPV drones, so which is a shitload of drones. But think about it. I mean, like, none of those drones can go more than a couple kilometers. So without some kind of radio source. Okay, some kind of Wi-Fi, and if you have a single point of Wi-Fi, see, this is why Wi-Fi is like. So this is another reason why drone warfare is really difficult to do. Okay, so in Russia it works out because there are 2 or 3 cell phone towers every now and then. There is a single signal. Okay, it's not difficult to find that and jam it. So they've switched over to using wire-guided drones. Okay,
Right.
when you're over farmland, that's fine. If you try and do that over saltwater, jungle, cities, they don't work. So, and then, I mean, basically what you do is you just nuke all the Wi-Fi signals in an area, and okay, we're back to rifles and bayonets.
We are, but at the same time,
So-
so the solution to that, of course, is satellite.
Possibly, if they can actually put up a system like that. I mean, we've already got 2, so that can do that.
Right.
So and I mean, both of the systems, not just Starlink, but also the one that the military uses, is basically, it's so redundant that you can't do much about it. Or you have, autonomous drones and you fire them like fire and forget missiles. So, and then they actually have a targeting package and then they'll go and find that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, but you still need a GPS signal for that. So, and you can jam that. So,
Okay.
in fact, that's easier to jam than it is to jam a Wi-Fi signal. So, because they're known frequencies, and there's nothing you can jump to. So, like with Wi-Fi, you can signal hop. So,
You can, but
It's not easy.
I'm going to tell it's not easy, and I'm going to tell you it's not that efficient. I mean, Wi-Fi
Oh, no.
is. All right, man. You want to talk about some bullshit? All right. So the very concept of Wi-Fi for our generation, and I mean you and I, the people that came from this time period, Wi-Fi is, as far as I'm concerned, is like a miracle tech that I shit you not. That as far as as far as the things that we should have thought would never be capable in our lifetimes, it's not just something that existed, and we should still be like giving like silent appreciation to every morning at like the breakfast table. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, let's think how cool it is. We don't have to connect everything with cables, and so you're like, all right, this is cool as is. But it's also to the point where it itself is becoming outdated technology within our lifetime. And it's new. It's relatively new.
That's used.
I ain't fucking around, dude. When I can sit there, like, the same thing goes, like, the same concept of IR and Bluetooth and that kind of stuff. Bluetooth is like, they're part of me that say, like, yeah, it's nice. But, the truth is, I can still feel that millisecond delay. When I'm doing this, and I'd prefer to have a corded junction because of, and they're like, well, we've gotten it down to this, where like Bluetooth like 5.03, and it's reduced it by another half millisecond, but I can still feel it. And it's still wrong.
It's still wrong.
It's still wrong. This is still dog shit.
Yeah, this should be wired in with copper.
And you gotta remember, like you gotta remember, we came from the age where it's like, when did the Atari 26 come out in our lifetimes, man? And you're like,
I was a kid.
This is the shit that comparatively it should still feel fresh, but we're still finding like the whole things that are like, this is dumb. We're seeing certain things within the system where like it does feel stupid. You're like, why do I have this phone? Okay, I can do a lot of things from it. Why do I also still have to have a remote for the TV? Why do I also... There are certain things like, why can't I just do this with my phone? Why can't everybody do this with their phones and stuff like that? Just certain things where we've gotten past the part of, this is the coolest thing ever. Now it's been 6 months. Why can't this do more?
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this, or like, yeah, if you're relying on Wi-Fi, that's great. This is a dying technology and it has to go. So there's a part of me that says like, all right, so whatever they come up with, they're going to find a way around. They're going to find some other way to get around this one way or another.
Yeah, but I
do think unmanned aircraft is
to a point. I mean, like manned aircraft or unmanned aircraft, maybe, but they wouldn't be cheaper. So
no, but
yeah, because like, so the problem with like,
well, hang on,
they're not going to be cheaper, Jeff, because like, think about it. If you take out the pilot, okay, and now you don't have like the exact same requirements in order to have a habitable mod, like okay, that gives you a lot more operational capability.
Correct.
Which means you're going to load it up with gas and bombs, so it's not going to be cheaper. So
no, well, okay.
I mean, like the idea that like the drones will actually be smaller than an F-18 in the future, I don't think that's true. So because you don't have the range. So
no, I agree. Okay, so there is that. You're absolutely right. However, I mean, there is something to be said about, there is a design limitation that we have with aircraft right now because you have to put a person in it.
Well, it is a design limitation in some respects, but that's also a very powerful processor. And the thing is like any kind of like aerial combat that requires some kind of maneuverability, we haven't done that since the 1950s. So, it's all missile tech now. So, like, you never even see the people that you're going to shoot at. So, because they're going to be not just, like, far. They're going to be over the horizon far. Yeah. So, like Sea Sparrow missile, it goes so fucking far, that, I mean, the whole question is whether or not you detect somebody first. Because if you have a better sensor package on your platform, and you can detect the other guy first, you're going to blow him up. He's not even going to know it. I mean, he's going to get a warning missile when it's like 500 yards behind him.
And that's getting very close to the point where it's going to explode and wreck your shit.
It's just going to explode and wreck your shit, yeah.
But that's sort of it, is basically the concept of that is then basically to eliminate the need to launch the missile and make the drone the missile. So that's the
you can do it that way, and so like the Air Force is kind of doing that, where like the drone itself you know, like they got the Navy's got this concept of the drone swarm. The Air Force is like the one where it has packaged drones where, and they're not even launched from fighters. They're going to be launched from B-52s.
That's exactly what, to me, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but that's an 80-year-old airplane, man. Yes. Come on, bro.
Why do we still use them?
Because it's a solid airframe and it still works. So,
and because it holds a ton.
It holds a lot of shit. Yeah. It's also very vulnerable. So, you know, but that, I mean, so like the future of warfare, like, look, it's all going to be missile tech anyway. So, I mean, missile tech's been around since World War II. And so, you know, and the idea that, you know, like a drone is fundamentally different than a Sea Sparrow is wrong. It's not. So, so this is not new tech.
Big family,
yeah, it's not. But that's the point. It's not new tech. And so the idea that we have, you know, modern warfare 3 type drone swarms around an aircraft carrier in the future, this is just not going to work out like that, man. And so, you know, the scary drones, especially the ones that the Ukrainians like have perfected, are submersible drones. So
that is true.
And those are scary fucking things because they are very hard to find. And you know what you can do in the water that you can't do on land very well? You can use a wire guided system. So, good point. Because it's in the water. You know?
That's a great point, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, so you have a standalone, you know, like ship that looks like a fishing vessel that has, you know, a fucking bay full of submersible drones is sinking the entire goddamn Navy with that. So there you go. That's what the Russians don't have any ships left in the Black Sea. Ukrainians have killed them all. So, or at least bottled them up where they can't.
Ineffective.
It's like if you come out of that port, you're going to die. So, you know.
We don't want that. Don't leave that port.
Don't leave that port. Yeah.
Yeah. This is okay. So I understand that part of the limitation is you and I are sort of giving a full extension off of. We're branching off of technologies that already exist, and of course it's speculative, and that's very difficult. I would argue that there's probably something, you know, much in the vein that look. So the F-117A seems quaint at this point.
Oh, they don't even use them anymore.
Exactly, but you're talking about something that was absolutely revolutionary and is now being implemented on just about everything now. And it gave us a ridiculous strategic advantage for decades. Still to the point, I think it does, because most militaries are not up to speed yet. But
nobody can do stealth like we do.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the argument for me here is I think that's going to be a component of whatever the next advancement in this is. I think it's going to be unmanned. I think it's going to be more of the drones as missile, and that's the thing is they're all based on either intercept or bomb, and it's just basically sending the aircraft at something, and it's just, I mean, warfare is not. We know this is. It's just like, looking at what is going on right now, there is just absolutely no way that things can ever devolve into that sort of, you know, World War II scenario again.
We'll never see that again. No.
It's just like, we'll see a nuclear apocalypse before we see that happen.
That's exactly what you would see before you saw that.
And if that happens, ain't shit I can do about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we're done. So, no, and I mean, like, so here's the thing. Like, I don't think we're going to see major conflict. I watch a lot of the geopolitical guys who, you know, bang the China drum or bang the Ukraine drum or the Russia drum or the North Korea drum. It's just not going to happen. I mean, both those guys are too weak to do anything. So China's too scared. They're way more scared of us than we are of them. So, you know, and when it comes down to it, they might order 1 million FPV drones, whatever. They're going to wind up in fucking African warlord hands within 10 years. You know, I mean, they're not going to be using that to swarm over to Taiwan. You know, I mean, ultimately they want to do it like Hong Kong, and they're willing to wait, you know, another 10 years. And quite honestly, there's an obvious deal on the table. So, you know, it's like, hey man, we won't really bitch that much about Taiwan, but you got to give up North Korea. So that's the obvious deal. So right there. Because, the North Korean regime and the Chinese, they don't get along right now. In fact, there's a massive famine going on in North Korea that nobody talks about. Because the Chinese have shut off their not all, but a substantial amount of their support. And that's why Kim Jong-un is sending, guys to fucking dig holes and lay down in them in Ukraine. Is because Russia's sending over grain shipments. Mm-hmm. So there you go. And the Chinese were like, hey, no, we're the guys who get to do that, so fuck off. So, but they built that bridge. So, and there you go. Yeah, and that's all that it is, man. And so I don't think we're going to see that kind of conflict, and so what'll happen is warfare will go dormant again for another 10 to 15 years, and then it'll be completely different. So
I think that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
It's been hot and heavy for the last couple of years because we hadn't seen an actual artillery fight since World War II. Well, maybe since Korea.
That's a good point, yeah.
And so,
yeah, that's true.
But the Russians have chewed through almost their entire inventory of shit. So, they're down to sending 15-year-olds and North Koreans to the front to fight over something that they have yet to take more than 30 kilometers in any fucking direction. So, over almost 3 years, that's bananas. So...
Not wild? Yeah.
Yeah, that's like Vietnam level bad. So, and they're gonna gas themselves on it. Yeah, and it's just, the whole thing in Syria is crazy, and I still can't wrap my mind around that. But like all of Russia's allies, one by one, they're gonna get crushed. So because quite honestly, you can't support a three-way circle jerk economy, when when none of you really have things that the others want. Yeah.
There's the problem here is like you got some people in here who like they're the talky version of Wile E. Coyote, super genius. He's got it on his business card. Thing is, putting it on the card and speaking eloquently doesn't mean that you are one, because he kept losing. That's the thing is there are things that and again, this is the kind of shit that in the they present this in the news, this narrative is like, oh well, Trump is still under the thumb of Putin. I'm like, no, he's not.
Not even
no,
close.
He's not. I'm like, you know why? Because Putin, like, he's got way too much shit to worry about, let alone influencing our fucking elections over here. Like,
I fully believe that the Russians have tried to do that, but it's you're like Wile E. Coyote thing where I set up these server farms and we bang on Facebook for 48 hours on this and then switch to this topic over here. The rock falls on this Roadrunner and
now you see exactly where I'm at. Yeah,
that work. Yeah,
that's exactly it. That's the thing is, like, why do you presume that these people in especially in comparison, especially after all the fucking damage that he's done to his country and his economy, has the weight and authority to still muscle? Like, are you nuts?
No, he doesn't. And he's getting old, man. Every time you see him, so to be fair, Donald Trump, like I saw him, he's looking a little bit worse for wear too, man.
I agree. And as a matter of fact, if you listen to his speeches from 45 versus now,
they're a little warbly now. Yeah,
it's not just warbly. It's that you don't. There was no chalk in his voice back in the day, and now there's a little bit of dirt and gravel.
A little bit of gravel. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, if you're going to sit there and show me and say, like, actually, these two guys right here, these dudes that are about to switch power, they're 2 years within each other, I would say, not possible. That dude, the guy in power now, looks like he's 109.
He looks like he's older than Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
Who died.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. That is correct.
Yeah, no, and so yeah, the amount of mea culpa coming out, or the lack thereof in some cases.
Again, this is where, like,
it's so unbecoming, man, that you just can't take any of that stuff seriously anymore. And like, because I've seen a couple guys, like prominent lefties, guys that I like to throw rocks at on Twitter, trying to do kind of a mea culpa, but then retreating back into throwing rocks at Donald Trump instead. And it's like, yeah, okay, the bus left. You're gonna have to wait for the next one, man.
Well, see, okay, so this is you are touching on the problem that I have. Is yes, there are a few people that have the decency to try to do exactly what you said. However, it is so pussy conditional when they do this. It's like, so when I come out here, I'd like to say that we did certain things wrong. Now, I need to let me couch this here, okay? I am certainly not saying that the fascist in office right now is any better, but if I'm going to say that we did things, there is always this conditional fucking nonsense of like, nah, man, you got to come clean. You got to say like, we did this wrong.
Yeah.
Right? There is a part where, look, this is the funny thing about the United States, especially in comparison to other countries, is there's a lot of stuff that we're willing to absolutely forgive if people come out and say like, I did it, I'm sorry, right?
Oh yeah, you can OJ somebody, and if like, I'm sorry. This moment of passion, I caught her with this guy, and I just went nuts, and yeah, I'm gonna go do my time quietly, and you come back out, it's like, hey, welcome back, dude. Yeah, like we're pretty forgiving.
And you just got to keep your nose clean for a while, and that's the thing.
Not steal your own trouble. It was like, oh wait, you're that guy.
and basically, what a lot of people need to do in the media is basically come clean and say like, so look, here's what I'm going to apologize for, and like this is the thing. As a journalist, I should have been reporting on this. Right? I should have been reporting on the media as a result of this here, and I didn't. I was cowardly. I'm not going to let that happen.
You had the best sources in the world right next to you. They're like, listen, a phone call away. You're one of them. So there's only been a few guys who've been doing that. So, and they were thoroughly ostracized. So, but,
hey, a lot of those guys started wandering off the plantation a little while ago.
Yeah, quite a few of them did. Yeah. So... and even if they don't support Donald Trump, there's been a few guys who've been doing that. So,
right.
So much props to them. I don't like a lot of them, but
no, there's
some of them are awful people.
No, and there are some dudes who there's still your John Heilemans that refuse to like give a single ounce of contrition. It's like, no, actually the problem is 52% of the country is fascist. Like,
and racist. Yeah.
You have those people, you have that angle. I'm like, cool. So every time that you say that, add another day to the reign of terror that is going to belong. Like, you guys, have you not figured out this is the dumbest losing strategy on your book?
I think a lot of Democrats have. So I don't know about the media, but I think a lot of Democrats have. So.
Dude, I would argue that there's. For still going in there and occasionally throwing rocks, okay, I think that I have to give her credit. I think that AOC is one of the smart ones that is started poking around like day 2. Like, what podcasts are you guys listening to?
I saw her on a thing with Bernie the other day. It was downright brilliant. Where they were doing a tear down. It's
a little bit of post-mortem, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, you're just as guilty of this, fucker. So you're the guy who actually, gave Joe a pat on the back and didn't decide to fight him. So, there's a little bit of mea culpa going on here, but she's actually asking some punchy questions. So this is good,
So she still throws hands with people and says like, so I'm not, obviously I'm still like, Democrat to the core, but there are certain aspects of this shit. Like, there was a point where, why'd the pronouns in your bio disappear?
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, there's stuff like that where she started to like call this in and say like, again, when she asked like, I'm not criticizing you guys. What podcasts are you listening to?
Yeah, no, she's legit. And, the Latinx thing is no longer a thing with her. In fact, I always thought that kind of pissed her off, but, I don't know.
I think she jumped on board that train when she thought it was the right time to.
I think so, too. That just makes her an astute politician. So
that's exactly who she is. That's her role that she set into is basically a young version of what's eventually going to become an East Coast Nancy Pelosi type. That's it. She's going to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's already rumors that she's going to go after Schumer's spot. So
really,
oh. Yeah, I've heard a couple rumors along, but that's not for another 2 years. So,
well, that dude can't disappear fast enough.
I've always seen him as basically harmless. So, He's certainly not going to be the one to lead the Democrats out of the wilderness, though. So,
no, they're
it might be John Fetterman if they don't kill him first.
so,
I can see him getting Caesared.
I don't. That it's not even Caesaring, dude. That is John Fetterman at this point is he's a young carpenter. He's and this little business.
This is Sasquatch, man. So they're gonna realize it and say, "Wait a minute."
They're just gonna be like, "This man is not our Messiah."
Yeah, exactly.
And
what do you mean flip over the tables in the temple? Are you crazy?
Now, I will say this: he is possibly the least eloquent member of his tribe, but at the same time, the fact that he will come out there and say, like, directly say, like, look, I don't agree with these guys on this, right?
Yeah.
But I want to work with them. And the fact that he said, like, he said the thing that you and I said, where you don't root against the president in terms of your country. You root for your country first. You hope that, regardless of who your president is, you want them to succeed because it's good for the country.
Yeah.
If they fuck up,
you're there. Yeah.
Right. You get to do your finger wagging.
You are the loyal opposite.
But yeah, the fact that he's basically clamped down and made fun of everybody who was saying, like, you guys don't understand the words that you've been saying. Like, none of you know what fascism is.
No, yeah.
Stop saying it.
I've seen him do that a couple of times. He's fun to follow on Twitter. So
yeah, and that's there's a thing to this where you can kind of tell when you're doing a good job when you're hated by both sides and liked by both sides.
Yeah.
And not just from one or the other.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he says it. He goes out there and he says, like, look, don't let what I'm saying confuse you. I'm a Democrat. Like, I'm always going to be a Democrat. He's like, but the approach that we've been taking on this here has been all wrong.
Yeah, they got some fights that they got to fight out on their side. So,
well, I feel a little bit more confident now that the right people are going to be losing those fights. There was
the Democrat side, yeah,
on their side. There are people that in the process of eating each other, like, there are a lot of people that just they have to be devoured. They have to be devoured.
I don't know, man. Adam Schiff is just he's getting into his new cushy gig. So there's going to be a few around. I've actually seen Debbie Wasserman Schultz pop her head up from her hole.
She
a few times.
Yeah, she. Every now and then she escapes from the fucking dog groomer and makes her face.
Well, I mean, like Nancy Pelosi, like broke her hip or something like that, so she's been silent. And so. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, Queen Cersei is dead." So,
I'm not.
I'm not. So it's time to make a beeline for the red. Oh, never mind. You didn't watch that series, so that's okay.
Well, am I wrong in this in saying that maybe this is not the right approach? I'm just going to say it as honestly as I can. I feel like there is something to look forward to. I'm not celebrating that she broke her hip, but it is an indication that I feel like some of the old guard is about to shift out, and they need to.
And they're on blue team, yes.
On both sides. Look,
well, red team, I don't know, man.
There's a lot of old ass people on that side too that need to be shuffling out.
Like who?
Like that fucking turtle. That's always
he's out anyway.
Yeah, I know, but
yeah, he's not going to be the head of the Senate, the lead. He's not taking a majority position in the Senate.
But that's what I'm talking about. Is folks like that need to go. That
I think he committed to finishing out his term. I think he's got 3 years left. So but he's not going to be in leadership anymore. Like in Congress, I don't know about red team, man. So he's like the only really old guy that I can think of.
Look,
it's kind of like that old school, because Trump's not putting very many of the old guard Republicans into his cabinet.
No.
Well, I mean, Marco Rubio, I think he would count. He's a young guy, but he's been around a long time.
Yeah, that's the thing is his I think his appearance decries his experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And look, and as far as like, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I think she's done.
Go.
Yeah.
That's
She was in a Twitter fight all weekend, wasn't she?
she's always in a Twitter fight, dude. You're talking about a person who.
There was some. What was the big hubbub that was going on this weekend about Elon Musk and X and who was in? She was Marjorie Taylor Greene and that crazy psychopath lady.
Which one?
Oh, she was an influencer. She's an influencer.
Laura Loomer.
Laura Loomer. Thank you.
Yes.
You know, we're like, what was that all about? I mean, I saw a few of those things kind of come across my radar. And Steve Bannon poked his finger in there, and I thought he was donezo. So
He's not. He's certainly not. He's not a gorilla in this fight, but yeah. All right. So here's how this worked out.
okay.
Okay. So I was watching this the whole time, and this is a level of embarrassment for me that goes back to the. Remember when I talked to you about? Let's go back a little while here. So, do you remember a young man that got involved in some ugly shit in Wisconsin during a riot? Shot 3 people, went on trial for.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you
Kyle,
remember?
what's his name?
Yes,
I don't remember his name.
but that's him. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse.
Rittenhouse, there we
Okay,
go,
so
yeah.
if you recall, I remember bringing this up to you here, where he at the beginning, okay, he said he wasn't on board with Mr. Trump. You remember this?
Vaguely.
All right, so over one weekend, okay, he said that he was not. He's like, I don't find that Trump is as strong on Second Amendment stuff as I'd like. He said.
He said that on Twitter?
Yeah.
Just this last week.
No.
Oh, okay,
A while
all right.
ago. This is when I talked to you about it, and the entirety of rightist influencers, except for a few, decided that they'd swarm on it. They're like, you're the enemy. You're the like, how dare you.
Rittenhouse? Like who? Give me a couple names that did that.
So it starts with a cat turd, and everybody that's in. So
Oh,
all
okay. The
all
frog
of the-
people.
All of the, yes,
The frog people.
the
got
frog
it.
people. Except for a few, there were a few that were like, "Hey, asshole! It's like the free country. You can vote for wherever you want to." But ultimately, what happened is they excommunicated him so quickly that by when the weekend was over, Monday morning kicked in, right? And Kyle Rittenhouse basically set down the little like prayer mat and fucking licked the feet
Of the frog people?
of the frog people. Said, what, I was wrong. Now that I think about it, I'm Trump 100%.
Okay.
Right now, so here comes the Elon Musk thing. So you got a lot of the same frog people who have been, and as far as I'm concerned, rightly kissing, Elon Musk's ass for the past, few years, especially
Okay.
instrumental in the election. So there's this talk with immigration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they start talking about H-1B visas.
Okay.
Okay, and how did Elon Musk get to this country?
I don't know if he was on an H-1B, but he probably...
He was.
Was he, or was he on a student visa?
It turns out he was on an H-1B.
Okay.
Right? Now,
It was back in the PayPal days, wasn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Because I think he went to school in South Africa. I think he went to...
I thought he went to school in Canada. I'm pretty sure he went to school in Canada.
But that wouldn't be an H-1. That would be... He went to school in 2 places.
I'm almost positive that he went to school in Canada, and then he came to the U.S. after.
On it. Okay. All right. I think you may be right, but I think that anyway, but so there's a lot of talk, and don't get me wrong, I do have some problems with the H-1B visa, and I'll explain that in a minute.
Mm-hmm. They're kind of rare, so.
Well, what's the distribution of where they come from?
Oh, heavily China and India.
How heavily?
Oh, probably half.
Okay, here are the numbers.
Okay.
73% come from India.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
15% from China.
Yeah, I believe that.
The rest of the world is 10%.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's basically all India. And this shit is so fucking rigged on how they get these. Now, so there's been some...
Okay.
Oh, it's all right.
So the H-1B visa is a way to actually circumvent the country cap. Okay, so every country gets so many visas per year as a percentage. And so just because like India has 70% of the H-1B visas doesn't mean that there's people coming from Germany who don't get a visa. You got to be careful about that. Because you can still get a normal, like an actual green card.
We're talking,
okay.
and this is the thing. This is where it's basically up and above beyond that, right?
Okay,
all right. So anyway, as part of the immigration thing, there's a lot of hardliners that said like, wait, we were basically voting against this kind of immigration too, right? And
really, the H-1B?
Yep. Oh. And here's the thing: is a lot of data came out about this, like what this is for, right? Now, so of course here this Musk is like, wait a second, it's like,
yeah, I've got 3 companies that need engineers,
so he made the statements basically is like, look, you should always hire American first. He's like, however, we've got a problem here. We are not getting the skilled labor in this field that we need.
Is he not?
That's what he said.
What did they were laying off like tons of people in Silicon Valley.
Well, listen, all right, I'm just telling you what he said. He's like, look, so the reason that we're hiring, all these engineers out of these places is because we're not developing them homegrown, right?
And they're cheaper.
Now here comes the problem.
He didn't say the quiet part out loud, did he?
Here's the thing: yes, that is correct, and a lot of people went out there and they. This information is all public about who has them and what they pay and what the salaries are.
Yeah.
Yep. So people started. There are some dudes out there who really started, collating the data and said, like, all right, so best and brightest, huh? And they started just bringing out the list of his companies, then all companies, and then Amazon and everybody else. He's like, right. And here's the thing: is people took that in a way of, oh, so you're calling Americans dumb. Now,
I don't see that, but
but that, Patrick, here's the thing: I'm not agreeing with the sentiment.
Yeah.
Right. This is it glommed into 2 ways. It's like you're calling Americans dumb, and all you're doing is exploiting cheap labor. Right.
I can see that.
He said. Now here's the thing: is so everybody went to war with this, right? Because Musk said he's like, I'm not saying it doesn't need to be reformed, but we still need to be able to poach talent from other countries because we don't have enough of it here, right? Now you can argue the merits of it. I'm fine with this, right? Because the reason I'm bringing up the Kyle Rittenhouse thing is you have a person that agrees with you 99% of things.
Oh, yeah.
This 1% difference of these specialized visas.
Yeah.
Of which these are vetted people, right?
And they're rare.
Well, they are rare. I mean, yeah. I would argue that you do have a problem with distribution, but that being...
maybe.
I'll come back to that.
I don't know.
But this is not the big problem when it comes to what people are talking about with immigration.
No problems with fucking people jumping the fence, man.
Correct.
Yeah. But a lot of them are Indian and Chinese, too.
So what happened here was a bunch of people saw this and saw, like, he's a traitor.
Oh,
Elon Musk was he was a wolf. He was dressed up like a sheep the whole time. This is all part of
the frog people.
Of course.
Okay.
Right. He's part of the global homo.
He's part of the they coalition. Did that come out?
Yes. Right. And so eventually, and that was the thing, was over like 2 days over the weekend, Trump was silent on the whole thing. Right.
Well, I did see where he came out, and he's like, "Yeah, H-1Bs are great."
He's like, "I got a bunch of people working with me on H-1Bs."
I'm sure he does. Yeah. So I mean, and probably some of them are probably fucking cooks and stuff.
That was the thing. Was people were pulling up all the data, and they're saying like best and brightest, and it's showing where all these things have been pulled for. It's like 7-Eleven is best and brightest. Janitor is, and this is the thing. They're pulling this up like, and he's like, "I'm not saying it doesn't need to be fixed. But I wouldn't be here without this program. Think about what you would have lost if you didn't have And so people are like, oh, okay, Mr. Tyrant, and now you're
Right.
there were a couple people. I don't know what the shenanigans were. There were some people
I just saw
saying
that Lauren Loomer was involved in it somehow, and then I did see a really nasty, like, Americans are fucking lazy kind of thing out of Vivek.
and that was part of it too.
I didn't see that out of Musk, though, but I didn't dig into it. I did see that one out of Vivek, and I was like, well, you just fucked yourself alive, because, like, basically calling them deplorables is a bad strategy.
Well, on top of that,
So,
and this was the other component of this. There were people that were circulating fake screenshots
of what?
of what Musk and Vivek were saying. Some of it's true, some was not. But and so there was.
Ooh, I hope that one wasn't. I hope that one was fake then. So,
I don't know. I know the ones that Musk did, and that dude, like, he threw a hissy fit. He found a dude that was posting this shit, and he's like, "This is fake." He's like,
oh, okay.
And he went a couple of rounds with this, like, "Where did you get this?" Right? And this was shit that was pulled off of, like, Reddit, and ultimately the account got suspended. Right? So there's a little bit of like, oh, look at Mr. Tyrant throwing a hissy fit, when things don't go his way. And
well, I did see that from Lauren Loomer. So
again, there's a couple of people that
she's a psychopath. So
I agree. She
is crazy.
Yeah.
So
and so there were a couple of people that were saying like they lost their verification or stuff like this. I don't know how that story goes.
Yeah.
I don't know who's doing what. But the bottom line is, it was that same thing again, where it's like, you just declared the richest man on the planet your mortal enemy because he disagrees with you on 0.5% of the most inconsequential part of fucking immigration. The only, like I said, the only part of this that I disagree with is there's not a diversity of people being granted these. These should be going to many places.
I know a little bit about this because I've helped students get H-1B visas in the past. It's a pay-for-play system.
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And so if Microsoft wants to hire a whole bunch of engineers from India, I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, the process alone is like $70,000.
Yes.
Okay, it is quite expensive. So if Donald Trump wants to bring over a fucking chef from Cuba, okay, he's got the money to be able to do that and put that guy up in Mar-a-Lago and vet him and pay for the background check and all that shit. It's extremely expensive. So,
and there's a lot of like brokerage going on there where
they do. There are specific law firms that can help you with that. So,
well, there are also Indian companies that basically traffic people through here.
They do, but that's legal.
Way.
It's legal.
This is what I said. It's like
right.
Should it be? No,
I don't.
And this is where it's argued.
So there's a lot about it that I don't know, but like I would push back in the argument that if I'm a Swedish engineer, okay, an Indian guy's not taking my job because he's getting an H-1B visa. Okay, so because my country is smaller, I'm allotted just as many visas, green cards a year as India is. I'm going to get a green card. Okay, and that's going to be a lot cheaper for fucking Microsoft because they don't have to go through all that bullshit to get an H-1B visa. So I've helped 2 students get these things. They were extremely difficult. So I mean, it was expensive, but one guy, he was a petroleum engineer for a Libyan company.
There you go.
So they were paying for it. You know?
Right.
And the other guy, he actually did file for asylum. So, and he was able to like completely, and I mean, he used a brokerage company, and they asked me to write a letter, and I did because the guy was a great dude. And I was like, yeah, he's gonna make a great American and stuff like that. He got it, but I've tried it with a couple others, and they don't get them. And so it is such a convoluted thing that when someone asks me about how do I get a visa, I'm like, you need to find a lawyer, okay? Because I do not understand the system. But again, the H-1Bs, that's a small part of it. That's a very small part of immigration.
That's what, now again, I have heard, and this is something that remember, I used to have a ton of Indian students and stuff like this. So they told me about like the way that the systems were rigged as shit.
Oh yeah, you got to bribe people on their end.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, and so he was talking specifically about how India got so many of these and where they all come from. I'm like, this is crooked as fuck. And so, yeah, I would argue that this would probably be something where you look at it and say, like, yes, if you're going to have a program like this, it should be more evenly distributed because the whole idea is to poach talent from where it is. And so it's not. Look, I have my problems with Indian culture just in general, but I don't. I mean, it's not something where I'm saying like these people should be excluded. It's that when you see distributions like this, that's fucked up.
Oh yeah,
That's fucked up.
yeah. There's other countries that are higher on my hit list in
Agreed.
terms of corruption.
Correct.
You know, so I mean,
Correct.
they're like a second or third order concern. So I mean, as a guy who had a bunch of Saudi students one year,
Absolutely, Patrick.
You know,
I mean, when
and if you think Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet, you're wrong.
well,
He's the richest guy on paper.
there is,
So, but
Right.
anyway,
but yeah, so that's where the stupidity came in of, and given the fact that the weekend's over, a lot of people have like come to their senses and
I figured.
like
Well, yeah, I mean, as soon as Papa Trump came out and like settled the dispute, it was like, all right, so I guess I missed this entire furball that was going on. I just saw a couple things that, you know, some of the guys that I follow pretty closely were kind of lobbing rocks into that from the borders. So,
Yes.
and I was like, oh, well, I'll ask Jeff about this because I don't want to go through all those feeds, figure out what the fuck is going on.
no, well,
So-
it was enough time for it was enough time for every garbage like person that works at Politico and who is it? Is it Axios and all those other places?
Those are the most useless magazines
Indeed,
on the internet.
It was
Axios is the worst. So
possibly the worst.
it is possible. Political is not too far behind it, man. So there's a bunch of like things that I used to read all the time that are just unreadable now, and Politico is definitely one of them. I used to read that shit all the time.
Patrick, there was a time when I gladly would read the Huffington Post,
Yeah,
and that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Because they actually did have different perspectives of things that I actually liked. And then there was just, like, I blinked. I woke up one day, and all of the articles were basically, they were all bait. They were,
It's because Ariana Huffington sold it.
yeah.
Yeah, I could tell you probably what day that was. So
You know, and it's funny when the Washington Post goes so off the rails that Bezos has to step in and say, like, do y'all forget I own this?
yeah,
Do you think that you're actually going to get away with just saying whatever the fuck you
yeah,
want?
suits back on. You know, no more early, no more early quits on Friday. So
You're coming off you're like, so I hate to look, I don't want to call anybody else out, but I'm just, there are some rules. So number one,
no more remote work.
like, yeah, everybody comes to work. It's
comes
like,
to work.
okay, and that means you have to wear clothes that are suitable for work.
No more
like-
Birkenstocks.
It's like,
You know,
number
you
two,
shave those legs.
yeah,
You know?
number two, the Nerf guns go away,
Right. Yeah.
right? I mean, there are certain things where yeah, he had to. He's like, hey, remember, I do own this, and so we're not going to just write this provocative shit. But yeah, that was the thing where there was enough time for people to write dog shit articles to say like, the wedge between Elon. And it's like, guys,
Yeah.
you are so fucking stupid.
Dude, the Republicans have to purge the frog people eventually. So if this actually helps them get there, that's better. So you have to do it, man. So you got to police your own side, bro. You know, otherwise the other side's going to do it for you. So you know,
Hey, dude, what did we just say? We've been touted this. This is how we've been predicting elections. Actually, they're trailing. They follow the next election, but
right?
if you're scaring away the girls, you can't stay at the party. And
Yeah.
you know, that's the thing is, are your Laura Loomers scaring away the girls or bringing them in?
The Laura Loomers and the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world. You notice that Lauren Boebert has chilled the fuck out.
I think she has to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, man. You know, and so she started realizing, wait a minute, I'm one of those people who scares girls away. So, maybe I should do this thing on water conservation with Jared Polis. So,
There's-
and it's like, yeah, actually, that's and look at that, you're actually sitting with both the senators. That's cute. You know, so
there's this like it's this little bridge you cross at like 31. And it's a life
called The Bridge to Adulthood. Yeah.
well, it's like it's a real simple thing. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, and you have to decide which avenue of adulthood that you're going to be at, and you have to say like 31. You're like, all right, you know what? I think I've gotten high enough, and like you have to make that decision, or you have to decide. I'm high for life, bro.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're just gonna roll with this. Yeah.
Like I need to either be that person or
yeah.
be a different person, but I can't be this halfway in between.
Yeah, so I think I definitely see like there's a cadre of Republicans out there and frog adjacent people. Like Laura Loomer and Candace Owens and
yes,
maybe Steve Bannon. So
yes,
that guy, like every time I see him, man, his face gets a little bit more melty. So revealing his truly black heart.
yes.
So, and I hate to say it, but I think Matt Gaetz was one of those guys too. So, I'm still not necessarily convinced that Pete Hegseth is a 100% above board dude. So he might be a frog person. I'm not sure. So, but I think we can let one in and just keep eyes on him. I'm not quite sure, man. Deus Vult tattoos are pretty bad. So we both know what that means.
I know why I say it.
I know why I say it too, Jeff, but I also know like what hidden Schustaffel bolts on Call of Duty gamer tags look like. So, and like a lot of people do that in tattoo form nowadays. So
look,
we'll see.
I don't think look, it's a small percentage, right? It's a small percentage. But there are some people that are interested in Norse culture
and ridding the world of Islam
that aren't necessarily that big into Norse culture. They're just not. They're
right.
into what Norse culture represents.
Those are people who dress up like Vikings on the weekends, not people who get it tattooed on themselves.
Right. They like the symbols of it more than
or they become Vikings fans or something. So.
Yeah. I agree. There is no part of me that looks at things and say, like, I can say with any certainty that you are one of those people.
Right.
But there's certain, look, if you're asking me certain things about decency and presentation that I would never expect. Like, if you're asking me, like, just in general, should your congressman have a tattoo at all? I would say no.
Right.
Unless.
I
was like, you have the
globe and anchor.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, this is the kind of guy where I'm like, well, you were in the military. And that's what I'm saying. Like, anybody that is requested to sail for a long time or kill people on order is free to have tattoos and be a representative. The rest of you, right? Any of you that are just like straight up, not even like merchant marine. I'm talking about any just of these regular like things. Like, I don't even want my cops to have tattoos because that's leading a little bit too far into the two S's in KISS. Why did you put those like that? Why is it a fucking lightning bolt? Yeah. That's and it's weird because you're all Jewish, but that's the thing is when it comes down to it, I'm like,
that was back when Nazis were funny though. So yeah.
I look, and I know with those idiots, it was just strictly because it looks cool.
Well, yeah, it looks cool. Yeah,
that's it entirely. There's no part of this where Jewish Gene Simmons is like, no, we should really have an SS lightning bolt in our logo. But yeah, that's the.
I don't know, man. I'm not saying they should push him off the island. I just he's on the edge for me. I mean, I don't think. Like, so not this week, but next week, you're going to get all the confirmation hearings.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of these guys are going to have any problems with the exception of him. So I think he will gladly stab him off in order to make sure that Tulsi gets in. So, and so, like, if he's the one guy that's going to be the draw card, But I don't know. I mean, the Congress may have actually extracted enough blood. So at this point in time, they might be satiated.
They may be. And look, I would argue, I don't think, all right, Matt Gaetz is just the definition of where there's smoke, there's fire. There are things that haven't been proven, but there's enough to say, like,
There was enough there to pull the conversation away from Donald Trump, which was enough to get him like axed.
correct, correct. Where it's just like, listen, man, you're just weird enough looking for me to believe all the shit they say about you.
You got that weird forehead, man. I mean, there's just like certain things, and you got them Beavis eyes.
You do, and that's enough of a reason for me to say, like, I feel like you could have been involved in underage stuff. And that's a problem for me.
That's a big problem.
And so, yes, as I talked about...
that's like beating puppies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
As I said, like, when you're submitting a movie for a rating, sometimes you put stuff out there that you mean to catch the censors with. And you say, like, all right, I'm going to throw Matt Gaetz out here, and all you guys are going to swarm on this guy. And that's going to let me get the things that I care about into this movie.
That might be the case.
Right? Now, would I have had a problem if he made his way through? Probably not. I think there's enough there, enough of a lunatic in there to actually get some things done. But that's probably going to be not going to happen.
I don't think so.
I mean, he withdrew, so I mean that's all there is to it. So
well, yeah, and now it's just pure speculation. But to withdraw and then go and do something crazy like starting up an internet show on what is it? Not Rumble, but
Truth,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw that. So I know you touted her for a while, man, but Carrie Lake got put out to pasture. Did you see that?
Well, she said she didn't want to run for anything anymore.
Oh, I know. So she quit, kind of thing. But what the consolation prize was?
The ambassadorship, yeah.
To what?
I don't remember.
It's not even ambassadorship. So she's going to be the head of America Free Radio.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which doesn't do anything anymore. There's no Iron Curtain, Jeff. So, just makes me wonder. Donald Trump knows something about her that the rest of us don't. So.
I gotta love with you. Like, Arizona still doesn't make sense to me in that regard.
I don't understand it either.
But I'll leave it as is.
Yeah, it's not my business.
Look. There's motions in there that I don't know. Let me say it this way. I still think that there are certain shenanigans going on. I still think, especially California really demonstrated that there are still shenanigans going on. The way that they took that long, like 3 weeks after the election, and then found enough votes to just barely flip something by like 50 votes. I'm like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
This is bullshit. So, there are certain things that...
what did they flip?
House seats.
In California?
Yeah. Like 3 weeks after the shit had all been, like, called.
Yeah, but, I mean, like U.S. Congress House seats?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant California state seats. So
There were some of those, too, but...
California is a little bit of an enigma to me. I don't understand it. So, how can a state that is so populous, and so geographically diverse have such a heavy concentration of one political party in it? But then everybody that I talk to who's from California, they kind of line up with that. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe it does make sense.
So they line up with it in sense of they do not seem as diehard as so everybody they line up, but they're not San Francisco lineup.
No,
that's what I'm saying is
no, but they'll back San Francisco before they'll back Nebraska. So
absolutely. Sometimes, Patrick, I think I would. There are certain things where certain aspects of like when you tilt into it and say like it's only in places like Nebraska that you'll still have some holdouts saying that I think we should teach the Ten Commandments in school. And that's where, I'm going to be, excuse me, sir, no. That's, we can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't think, like, there have been, like, before this little Twitter spat that kind of brewed up, there's, like, talk Like I saw that all this stuff with Mark Andreessen, and I don't know if you know who he is.
Who's he?
He's Silicon Valley dude. So, buddy of Musk's, he shows up on. There's a podcast out there that's really big, that has him and David Sachs and a couple other guys on it. So,
Okay.
yeah, but anyway, talking about how like Silicon Valley and the power center is actually shifting to the West Coast, blah blah blah. I just don't see that, dude. So I cannot see that. Everything that you've told me about like the mass layoffs and the exodus of talent and blah blah blah, and the 20 years of investing in nothing. It's basically a money sink where people can play ping pong and wear Birkenstocks to work. That's just that's not gonna work, man. And I'm like Donald Trump, like even see like this whole thing with Vivek and Elon. I mean, the thing that it demonstrates to me is they're not going to be involved in the government for very long. So they really aren't, okay? Because any spotlight they take off the man, okay, is going to be like paid in retribution.
Maybe.
I don't see
Maybe.
it, man. I don't see it. I don't like. So Doge isn't actually a thing. There's already a thing called the GAO, so the Government Accountability Office, that does exactly what they do. They have the authority to be able to do that. So all they have is this advisory role. All they can do is say, hey, we're going to put a lot of Twitter bots on you if I mean, we got 2 years before the next election cycle. It's not going to happen.
This is something I don't.
I think he's going to get frustrated with
I don't-
it. He's going to go back to Mars here pretty soon, man. So
No, I understand. There's a. I don't know. There's a certain amount of. I think we're going to get a lot of compromised versions of what people actually want, and so
that's the nature of the country.
It is
That's what we do.
It's just a question of how that turns out. So if it turns out like basically the ACA, we're fucked. If it
We'll be
turns
fine.
well, that's a bad experiment, man.
It is a
That's
bad
just-
experiment. It might get peeled back. I mean, remember last time it was just John McCain who basically flipped that thing. So
No, I got you.
yeah.
I got you. But it's the manner of which the compromise things come out will be interesting. Well, I'm a little bit more optimistic about it, and maybe it's because there are certain things about this that I really want to see. The biggest thing, of course, is I do think that of all things, I think there will be some substantial, of all things, immigration changes. And
I agree. I think that'll happen.
I think that's the thing that really pissed off a lot of Americans. And I
Yeah.
think, like, I'm sorry, man. Certain things are just like they're gonna be glued into people's memories in terms of like fighting the shit. Like again, the same thing where you can't be starting people on fire in the fucking subway,
No,
and that's the kind of shit that's gonna drive people nuts.
these are the two things that I kind of expect to see. Is you're going to see a lot of emphasis on border security, immigration reform. It might actually finally fucking happen.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, but think about the size of that quiver, all right? So the size of that arrow, that is his presidency right there, okay? That and public safety, okay? So,
Agreed.
and
Yep.
yeah, you're going to have this thing where there's going to be a lot of money, kind of like Crime Bill 2.0, out there going towards, supporting cops and things like that, firefighters and first responders and blah, blah, blah. You're probably going to see that. Which means that you're not going to see Social Security reform. You're not going to see Medicare reform. You only get so many lifts on the machine when you're the president. So,
especially when you're on the second of your non-consecutive.
especially when you are starting as a lame duck. So, I mean, now he's got about 8 to 9 months to actually do some shit. No,
But that being said, it also means that he doesn't have to camp or spend any time trying to reelect himself. So I mean,
that's
there's
not the problem. Congress does.
oh them
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah oh my
They're the
bad.
guys who have to sign the checks.
Right. Okay. I gotcha. Yep.
No, he can freewheel. He's gonna free ball the rest of the
Okay.
the rest of this, man. So, but he gets 2 or 3 lifts on the machine before he has to start thinking about reelecting itself.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the lifter. You were talking about the machine.
I was talking
my
about the
bad.
machine,
Okay,
man,
my
yeah.
bad. All right, I gotcha. That makes perfect sense. All right.
All right, cool.
All right.
I'm Pat.
I'm Jeffrey.
I'm hitting the button.
Yeah.